Welcome to the Work the System podcast, where we help entrepreneurs make more and work less using systems. And I'm your host, Josh Fonger. Today, we have a special guest. We have Terry Lammers. Terry is a certified valuation analyst and co-founder, managing member of Innovative Business Advisors. Armed with a vast financial expertise and decades of hands-on business leadership, Terry now works with his team to guide business owners looking to sell their enterprises as well as prospective buyers. Terry's new book, You Don't Know What You Don't Know, is an in-depth examination of the process of buying, growing, and eventually selling a business. All right, Terry, well, I'm excited to jump into this. But before we do, why don't you tell us the backstory? How'd you get into this line of business?
Sure. Happy to do that. Grew up in a family business, wholesale fuel and lubricants company. Worked away from the business for a little bit. Came back in 1991, kind of took things over. Purchased our first acquisition in 1992. Things were a little rough when I came back. I always jokingly say it was me, my mom and dad, and we had two trucks, and it was a good day if they both started. So, but from 1992 through 2010, had the opportunity to purchase 11 other companies and grew the company from $750,000 a year in sales to over $42 million when I sold it in 2010 to Growmark, which is a Bloomington, Illinois-based farm cooperative. So Growmark bought my lubricants division. 8 of their member companies bought the fuel and lubricant side, or the fuel side. So from there, I got into commercial banking because my wife had told me I had to get a job. So I did that for 3.5 years and got my entrepreneurial spirit back. And in July of 2014, we started Innovative Business Advisors. I got my CVA designation, a certified valuation analyst. So we do a lot of business valuations. We help people buy and sell companies and have a coaching aspect to our company. And just love working with business owners and helping them through their transition.
Okay. Well, cool. I've got a lot of questions because a lot of my clients, as we talked offline, are in this situation, or at least they want to prepare for it. So what would be the first step? So where do they begin? You know, they've got a business, they have a team, and let's just say they're 50 years old, and they think, you know what, someday I need to sell this thing. What should they do first?
The first thing I would tell any business owner is to get a valuation of your business. I'm not trying to sell our services, but you mentioned building a team, and you're probably referring to a team of their employees.
Yeah.
You also need to build a team of your advisors. You know, who's your banker, who's your attorney, who's your financial advisor, who's your CPA. But really, the starting point is, what's the company worth? So many people have an unrealistic expectation of the value of the company. And it's really sad when they come to me and they're 65 years old and they think the company's worth 10 million and it's really only worth 5 million. And that's before taxes. So that's a disaster. So, you know, if you get a realistic valuation on a company when you're 50, then who's your financial advisor? What do you need to retire? I'm working with a client right now that the value of their business is, and they're 50, is not going to get them to their goals for retirement. So we actually, within the past couple of weeks, secured buying them another location to expand their business. So that's just very important.
Okay. So at what point should a company think about that? Because I hear that story all the time, and it's devastating, especially when the older they are. At what point should they start to even bother getting an evaluation? Should it be 5 years before they want to sell, 10 years before they sell? What do you think?
You know, honestly, I would say that no matter where you're at in the life cycle of your business, it's a good idea to have a valuation done, because the other thing, I mean, it's just going to give you an idea of what the company's worth, but it'll also, going through the process, you're going to learn, where's the value of my company being driven from? So the other thing to keep in mind, you know, we don't want to go too deep into the subject right out of the gate yet, I guess, but I would tell you that when we do a valuation, we're doing a financial valuation. Mm-hmm. We're valuing the cash flow of your company. If I'm a buyer, like when I was buying other oil companies, I may be thinking of this as a strategic acquisition. Mm-hmm. So in the book, I talk about my accountant and I would always butt heads because I'm like, if I buy this company, we're going to wipe out all these expenses and look at the value of it. And he's like, Terry, you pay for a company for the cash flow that it's spinning off, and that valuation is going to be different than a strategic valuation. Most of the time when you hear these wild multiples, it's because it was a strategic acquisition.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then what about the, is there anything beyond just the numbers and the strategy? Like what if a company is really, like we help companies get very efficient, very functional, where the owners essentially don't have to be there. That's kind of what we help people do, is free up the owners so the business is a separate entity, separate from them, versus a lot of companies, especially smaller ones, where if the owner is not there for a few weeks, the company suffers. And if the owner is gone for a month, the company goes out of business. So I've got to believe that it's worth more if it's a separate entity than the owner.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we had a trucking company that we was trying to sell, trucking and logistics, and the company was cash flowing over $500,000 a year. And, so that's great. We attracted a lot of buyers, but the owner was everything. I mean, he dispatched the trucks, in that we use the value builder system as a platform for some of our coaching, which are non-financial things that can affect the value of the company. And in this case, value builder would call it the hub and spoke. He was the hub, and the spokes were all the employees, customers, suppliers that were, came straight to him. You take him out of the picture and it's dead.
Yep.
And so there's a financial value to that cash flow that's coming from the company, but ultimately the company was unsellable because, it couldn't run by himself. So, other things, another one that I think is very important is called the Switzerland structure. Switzerland's a very independent country. So is your company independent of any one employee or any one customer or any one supplier? In my situation, when I sold my company, I had a lubricants blending contract with Mobil, so I could buy their oil bulk and repackage it. Just because I'm selling my company doesn't mean that blending contract is going to go to the buyer. So if my buyer needed that contract, that could be a real hiccup in trying to get the company sold. So yes, there's a lot of things that I would tell you may affect the value of your company, but may also just make your company completely unsellable.
Okay. So there's like some killers that no matter what the money, the financials say, it's just not going to be sold. Or if it is sold, it's going to be at such a massive discount because of the liability. Okay.
I like to tell the story of, I had a fuel customer with the company, and he delivered all the milk from a dairy, processed milk. And he's running about 50 trucks. He's still in operation today, and he goes through about 10,000 gallons of fuel a week. For a fuel guy, that's a good account. But guess how many customers he has? One.
Yeah.
How are you going to buy that company? If the dairy goes away, you're done.
Yep.
And that's a big company. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I totally agree with you. I mean, having diversified risk all throughout the whole business, whether it's your employees, your suppliers, vendors, sales channels, products. It's efficient to have one customer and one product and just exchange it. That's efficient, but you're only one day away from going bankrupt.
Yeah. Customer concentration is a really big deal. That's something that comes up pretty high on the list with any transaction. What percentage, if you've got 10% of your customers generating 80% of your income or 90% of your income, that's a red flag.
Well, so I think that the common theme, at least for those taking notes, is get evaluation, no matter where you are, if you want to sell your company at some point in time, and do it really, really, really early. Because then you're going to come up with ideas on what to do, start building out your team, and ultimately be a better owner, it sounds like.
It's very interesting. The very first valuation I did, after I got my CVA, was a large animal veterinarian clinic. And we valued the company because another vet was buying into the company. And 5 years later, she called me back. The owner's wife called me back, and she said, "Hey, I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know that we're selling our company, and we used your valuation as the basis." They just basically redid the numbers as the basis for selling our shares now to the person that bought in 5 years ago. So, it's really not a waste of money. It's a document that you're going to be able to go back to and reference as years go along.
Yeah. And just like anything, if you're doing this every day, you're going to have so much more knowledge than somebody who does something once in a lifetime. Like I've been working with a couple of attorneys this week, and maybe I could learn every single thing that they did to write these contracts, but 1 hour phone call is
Yeah.
gives me.
And really two other things, I'd say two mantras that I preach all the time to my clients is it's not about sales and net income.
Mhm.
It's about gross profit and cash flow. I
Mhm.
go off the wall when people come in, my sales are up 20% this year. Well, who cares? What is your cash flow up? The cash flow is the value of the company. The
Mhm.
other thing, when you get into selling your company, it's not how much you sell your company for, it's how much you get to keep net of taxes.
Mhm.
So, there can be significant swings in your tax liability from selling a company. And that's why it's so important to have your CPA and a good financial advisor that's, familiar with mergers and acquisitions to help you through the process. In the book that you mentioned, I talk about things that I did right and things that I didn't do right. And I didn't do that right. At the time, heck, I only had about $80,000 worth of investable money. So I didn't have a big financial advisor. I didn't need one. I didn't have the cash. All my money's tied up in the business.
Mhm.
Big difference when you get handled a 7-figure check.
Mhm.
I didn't talk to my CPA about it because he was also a customer of mine on the farming side. He was a big farmer.
Mhm.
So, I made it through. I did fine, but there's things that you definitely need to get in place. And it's all things that I like the name of the book. You don't know what you don't know. I mean, I didn't know,
Mhm.
so it's a
Yeah.
process.
Wow. And making one wrong choice could be devastating financially. But let's talk about that because you brought up taxes. So maybe what are the kind of highlights in preparing to sell or buy that really would make sense for taxes? What do people need to be aware of?
Really just seek out,
Just get an
make
advisor.
yeah, a good advisor. I mean, are you using a bookkeeper? Are you using a CPA that can give you tax advice? Do you have a financial advisor that just sells products?
Mhm.
Or do you have a financial advisor that's really a fiduciary,
Mhm.
and meaning they're looking out, they only make money as your portfolio grows. So they earn a percentage
Mhm.
of what your portfolio is. And that can be really confusing to people. I referred a friend to a fiduciary financial advisor. He goes, well, that guy wants to take 1% of my money every year. It's like, well, yeah, but you don't know it. You're paying for these loaded funds that you're buying.
Yep.
So I always tell people I'm the quarterback. I
Mhm.
can tell you ideas, there's deferred sales trusts that you can use. There's ways that you can push off the capital gains for 30 years,
Mhm.
And you can get 97% of what you sold the company for. But everybody's situation is different. Do you need the money from the sale of the company for your retirement? Or is this kind of a bonus on top of your retirement savings that you already have?
Mhm.
So putting that team of people together is just vitally important. It
Mhm.
really is. And I see, with attorneys, people go to their estate planning attorney to help them through an M&A transaction, selling the company. No, you need to have an attorney that can get it done,
Mhm.
or you're going to be stuck in a quagmire of legal fees and just never getting to the finish line.
Mhm. So let's talk a little bit about acquisitions now, because that's a growth strategy that I've worked with on some clients, but oftentimes it's more difficult, more time consuming, and messy than they might think it's going to be. So what should you do if you're thinking of growing through acquisitions? Like maybe you have I don't know, let's just say you have a car dealership, used car dealership, and you want to grow and acquire a few other car dealerships to expand what you do. What do you have to think about?
How bankable are you? How are you going to finance it? So, I mean, I think that I got a whole chapter on bankability in the book. And you need to know, if I'm going to go out and after buying a company, can I afford to buy it?
Mhm.
I remember one of the companies that I bought, for the first time was over $1 million. Like, ooh, $1 million. That's a lot of money,
Mhm.
but can you go to the bank and get it?
Mhm.
Do you have the collateral to back that loan up? What, you know, do, what a bank is really going to look at when you go to acquire a company, it's kind of frustrating. They want to look at your cash flow and they don't want to consider the cash flow from the company that you're acquiring.
Mhm.
So I had, the first couple of companies I bought, it was always kind of a fight. It's like, well, what about I'm going to get cash flow from this company I'm buying. This will work fine. And they didn't want to look at it like that. When my company grew to where my cash flow could support the debt of buying the company without any cash flow from that company, that's when it really started to pop and we can buy companies left and right. But another thing to think about is you got to go out and ask. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want to ask Joe if he wants to sell his business. That's a little taboo. No, or it's not. I did that quite often. I called it planting the seed. I would just stop by and just introduce yourself. You don't have to tell them that you're looking to buy their business, but just make sure they know who you are. All of a sudden, after about the third time, one day you're going to get that call. Say, hey, Terry, why don't we have coffee? And I've had it happen that way. Let your centers of influence know. Tell your insurance company, who you got your business insurance with that you're looking to grow by acquisition. Tell your banker. Let people know that you're looking to acquire another company. Talk to brokers. One thing that on us on the broker side, most of the time we're representing people that are selling their companies, but we do buy side representation. If you are that used car dealer and you come to me and say, Terry, I'm looking for used car dealerships to buy, I can search that out. What's a time killer for us is somebody that's working in, say a corporate job, and they come to us and they say, I want to buy a company. Ugh. What kind of company do you buy? How big a company do you want to buy? So if you know your bankability, your target, when we're using used car sales lots, then how big of one you can go out. You can search these by NAICS codes, Dun and Bradstreet. There's several ways that you can go about searching, by size, by state, by region. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So a lot of people don't know this, but Sam Carpenter, wrote Work the System, my business partner. And I'm going to kind of botch his story because I don't know the numbers, but he essentially found a call center, an answering service in Oregon, and just walked the front door and said, hey, I want to buy this business. And then I think a few months later, he owned it, and they were struggling. They were about to go out of business. I think he bought it for like $10,000, and that's what's made him millions and millions of dollars. It's just,
Josh, it makes me jump up and down. Purchasing companies through an acquisition is a great way to grow. You do have to know what you're doing a little bit, but I've done similar things that, before we jumped on, I said fastest company I ever bought was in 3 days. We found out about it on a Wednesday. My mom actually was still working for me at that time, and she had a presence of mind to ask guy, well, what are you doing with your customers? And he said, I'm telling them to go someplace else. So I called him back and said, hold the phone, I'll be right there. And we worked out a deal by Friday that any customers that we kept of his, we would give them 20% of the gross profit for the first year. And it worked out to be a very fair deal. I mean, it was going to close the door on Friday and get nothing. And, ended up getting a fair value for the company. And we picked up a bunch of very key commercial customers in a region that would have been very difficult to get into. And that's the other thing I would say is, another advantage of growing by acquisition is you may know who some of your competitors' clients are, but you never know who all of them are. In the book, I talk about, in the one acquisition, we acquired a fuel account, which was a refinery. Well, who would think that a refinery would be a client for a fuel company? They make the stuff, right? But what gets used in their vehicles is taxable, so they have to buy it from a licensed distributor. So we acquired that business. One, I wouldn't have known that they would have ever been a potential client. Two, I would have never been able to call on them because you have to have a pass to get in the gate. And really the person you need to talk to is in Houston, not in Wood River, Illinois. So, it really is expanding your region, your resources. Maybe they're selling something that you can't. Maybe, like in our situation, a lot of times we could add products that the smaller company wasn't selling to them. So again, that gets into kind of the strategic part of it.
So what do you tell your employees when you're getting ready to sell your business? How do you thread the needle there?
Yeah. So that's another thing that is threading the needle, and every situation is different. After I bought a property management company, after I sold the company, And we didn't tell those employees. We only talked to one employee of that company before the day we purchased it. And then I'm laughing a little bit because I've done this several times. It's the day that you walk into the boardroom and all the employees are there and you're like, hi, I'm the new guy, but it really does matter on that. I had a company that I talked to the general manager and the sales manager for literally 3 months before we purchased the company.
Mm-hmm.
When I sold my company, I had 25 employees. My management team knew about it about a month before everybody else. But then because the company was getting sold to 9 different companies, we actually rented out a convention center and had all the employees come to it. We spoke to them as a group,
Mm-hmm.
and then they went to separate tables to talk to whichever companies they was going to be going to. So it really is. It's tricky because you don't want to lose employees. So golden handcuffs,
Mm-hmm.
you talk about non-financial things that can affect the value of a company. If you have some key employees do you have them tied down? I ran into a situation with selling a company that 2 weeks before we were supposed to sign the papers, we had to figure out the buyer wasn't going to buy it if the 2 key employees didn't stay. So the owners did a good job, and they had 2 people that they could go on a 2-week vacation, but they didn't have them tied down.
Okay.
And if they wasn't going to stay, the buyer wasn't going to buy. So, that can be, it is really something you got to think about. And there's no right answer. Every situation is different.
So if let's say you do acquire a business to expand your territory, what should you do as a new acquirer to keep as many people and keep as many accounts as possible? Like, is there a certain strategy where you jump in there day one and you prevent it from bleeding out?
Yes, that's great. That is a great question. My advice on that is just as the buyer, stay calm.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see things that you want to change. People don't like change. So just as much as it may pain you, just watch for a little bit and make subtle changes. Let them earn your trust, employees and customers, and then it's simple. One, the bigger customers, you obviously want to get out and talk to them and make sure that they don't have any major concerns. So that's the key, to really get out and talk to your big customers first. But, let them feel you out. Do business with them for a little bit. And then, they don't want to change because people don't like change, right? But treat them with kid gloves and then make changes eventually. Because it's the disaster of coming in, and I've seen it happen where the new buyer comes in and is like, all right, we're changing everything the first day, and people just like, hey, this is a bunch of crap, I'm getting out of here, and that happens. So that's my 2 cents worth on that.
No, I think that's great, and I can certainly relate. When I fly in and do consulting, you can't just go in there and just change everything immediately. And it's possible they know things on the ground that you don't know. And
and that's great, because I love that too, because it's funny. We got to be a pretty good sized company, but even the littlest company that you would buy, it's like there's always 1 or 2 things that they're doing that you kind of look and it's like, hey, look how they're doing that. That's pretty slick. And you can apply that to your bigger operation. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, I know we're kind of jumping all around here, but I'm thinking of new ideas and different clients I'm working with. So here's another situation. So, and again, I know it depends, but let's say you're going into to buy a business. So I got a podiatry practice, and he wants to, let's just say, expand and open new territories outside of his state. Is it always a good idea to try to make the deal done quick, speed, or is it better to elongate? And on top of that, are there any techniques to really get the price low? It's better to go with a low ball offer first and then work them down, or how do you negotiate these things to get the best deal?
So let's start with time. Time is a killer. Time kills all deals. So get it done as soon as you can. I mean, if they want a deal, don't be overly pushy, but time kills all deals. As far as negotiating the price lower, personally, I am not the low ball person, and my strategy was just be fair. It'll make the seller more comfortable. They won't feel like they're getting taken advantage of. And again, this is just me personally, but after the check is written and the deal's done, I want to be able to call that seller and get his help. If I need help with a customer, advice on a supplier, or something like that. So we talked about the company I bought in 3 days. I got that really cheap. I actually had another company. We talked to him about buying their company. The owner didn't call back in a couple of weeks. So I called him, and his wife answered the phone, and she said, the guy's name was Alex. She goes, "Oh, I'm so happy you called me. Alex had a stroke and he can't talk. And we have customers that need deliveries. Can you take care of them for us?" So that was in February. I finally went to her in April, and I'm like, "Mrs. Sylvester, I have to pay you for this company. I can't take it from you."
Uh-huh.
So you do find situations, but just remember, time is a killer.
Mhm.
And that's why it's important to have good attorney and, so you and have your banking
Mhm.
lined out ahead of time. I always met with my banker at the beginning of the year and told him, this is what I plan on doing, so he's got a heads up.
Mhm.
So if you tell him, "Hey, I'm going to buy this company for over $1 million," he's like, "No, you're not."
Mhm.
You fix that before you make the offer.
Mhm.
But then, um, evaluation's a good way to approach it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying to get it for the best price, but
Uh-huh.
uh, being fair definitely helps move things along faster and helps after the deal's done.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that's, you can try to cut corners and get a great deal, but in the end, it's going to bite you. And I think I should know the guy's name. I interviewed him a while back. The guy who wrote the book, Never Split the Difference, that hostage negotiator. And I'm not sure if you know who I'm talking
Oh,
about, but that's his big thing is, yeah, you might get a good price, but they're going to be upset and they're going to screw you later,
yeah.
in some kind of passive aggressive way that you'll never know about. And so it's just better to make a good deal, make a fair deal, because it's not like the cord gets cut and you're never going to talk to them again. That's going to be a
Yeah,
problem.
because their customers in most situations, their customer is going to see that prior owner at some point in time. And the last thing you want them to, at a church picnic or a restaurant or something's like, "Yeah, I don't like that guy that bought me. I think that I got the short end of the stick." Oh God, I just, you can't, toothpaste is out of the tube. Then you can't put that back. Right.
Yep.
So, that was just my approach all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think if you want to play a long game and be successful, you have to play that way. You can't think you're going to screw people along the way and then come out on the top at the end.
Because if you do it right, that former buyer can be your biggest advocate. And guess what? He knows other people in the same business. He may go to another person that he's friends with in the industry and say, "Hey, you need to talk to Terry. He treated me pretty fair." And there's your opportunity for another acquisition.
Yeah. No, that's good, and that definitely makes it easier to do deals. So what about, let's just say you don't have money. So you don't have money, you want to buy a business, it fits with your skill sets. Are there any kind of creative ways you can finance beyond just having, just already having the money in the bank? What are some creative solutions to buying a
How
company?
much time you got? No,
15 minutes.
no, absolutely. There's several ways. The very first company that I bought when I came back to the company, we didn't have two nickels to rub together,
Mhm.
so to speak. But we purchased a company contract for deed. The owner wanted out, and
Okay.
we was good people, but it was difficult in those days in the early '90s. Banks didn't want to touch oil companies in the first place. So, we did a complete earn out. We gave the guy $10,000 cash and paid him off over a 5-year period, and everything was hunky dory. He's taking a little bit of risk in doing that.
Mhm.
When I sold my company, the purchaser held back, almost 7-figure number just to keep my attention,
Mhm.
so that I help them transition the business. But I've done deals like the one I told you. I've done 2 of those deals where that it was a distressed company,
Mhm.
and I didn't know, so how many customers are I going to keep? So we did it on an earn out.
Mhm.
I paid them 25% of the gross profit for the first year, and
Mhm.
just set those clients up in my computer as a salesperson, and it was cut and dry. Wrote them a check. Um, I've done deals where we pay cash for the business
Mhm.
and the owner financed the real estate. Maybe the rent comes off you settle on a price and you pay them a rent, and the rent comes off the value of the property.
Uh-huh.
That's another way to get over a hurdle.
Mhm.
That there's just, you definitely, it does not have to be strictly through a bank.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's how, like, when I'm talking to you, and hopefully everyone's understanding this, is you you got to be creative. It's not just a binary. It's $1,000. Give me $1,000. There's a lot of things that go into it. And it sounds like there's health. There's just someone's got a stroke. So, I mean, I work with people where they had a stroke or a divorce, or there's just, they just burned out. They want to move.
I had
There's so many circumstances.
I had I think even when I sold the company, I still had 3 previous owners working for me.
Mm-hmm.
So they was burnt out. They loved delivering fuel. They did not like the day-to-day business. Mm-hmm. So, we took over all the administrative stuff. They got to keep driving a gas truck is what they like to do. Mm-hmm. And they got a salary, they got health benefits, so how do you value that? I'm going to buy your company, but I'm going to continue to pay you a salary. Mm-hmm. So that's where, using an intermediary or somebody that's been through this before, mm-hmm. There's a lot of deals that get stuck in the mud, but if you're working with somebody that's done it before, you can get creative and drive around a mud puddle. That's probably the dumbest analogy in the world, but sorry.
No, I think that's great. Well, I think that hopefully that inspires people is to not just feel like they're stuck, not able to ever sell their company, or stuck in growth because they can't acquire because they don't have the money, but working with experts and kind of brainstorming creative solutions. I think there's a lot of things out there, and then just getting out there, asking people, are you interested in selling? Do you know anybody who is? And you just keep doing that enough time. There's people out there.
Plant the seed.
Definitely. Well, I know we're running a little bit low on time, so I want to leave you with a couple other questions. Last one being, what did I not ask you? So I kind of went all over the map here, but is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would be helpful for the audience of small business owners listening here today?
I got a passion for helping small business owners. We didn't talk about the book too much, but you don't know what you don't know. It's a people. I get a lot of kind words said about it, but I talk about buying, an existing business, a simple way to value a company, the process of buying a business, building your team. So there's a chapter on bankers, attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, your bankability, then building value in the company. What's those non-financial things that make a company sellable and valuable? Mm-hmm. And then, the day that the notion gets in your head that you might want to sell this thing, and the process of going through that and selling the company. And then the last chapter is, don't be like the dog that caught the cars. So know what you're going to do with your life when you sell your company, because I was lost. And, all of a sudden you go from getting 100 phone calls a day to looking at your phone and saying, man, this thing doesn't ring anymore. So it is, it's a neat book. I think I keep it very conversational and simple for people to understand. It's a pretty quick read. So, but man, educate yourself, ask questions, build your team. Very important.
Yeah. And don't do it alone.
Yes.
I think that's the other piece of it. Well, Terry, this has been really helpful. Where can people find out more information about you or find this book?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Our website is www.innovativebaboyapple.com. We have a Facebook page, Innovative Business Advisors. So pretty much all those sites. The book is available on Amazon. You can download a free version off of Kindle if you'd like. So be happy to talk to anybody that's out there. We do work all across the United States. It's I don't know, it blows my mind. We're doing an evaluation for somebody in Los Angeles right now, and I'm in Illinois, 30 miles east of St. Louis. So I don't know how that happens.
The power of the internet. Well, good. Well, very good. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the podcast today with Terry Lammers, and make sure to stay tuned next week where I'll share with you another podcast with one of my previous clients or a business expert like Terry, sharing a tool, technique, or resource that will help you make more and work less. And before I sign up today from this live stream, if you want to get a copy of that book right there behind me, Work the System, you can go to our website, or you can leave us a review on wherever you're watching this. You can leave a review on Facebook and YouTube or iTunes, anywhere you're watching this. Leave us a review and send us a picture of that to info@workthesystem.com. And we'll be drawing one name out of a hat a week and mailing you a copy of that book signed right to your door. All right, everybody, we will catch you next week.